24 years old, already made $300,000 as a real estate investor in the last 3 months.
Our two biggest assignment fees, right? So one of them was $65,000, one of them was $61,000. Both of those came from realtors.
What else do people need to know to get their first deal for free? Ray Rodriguez, how's it going, baby?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you on the podcast for the second time.
Dang, no, I must not have annoyed you too much the first time.
So. No, actually, like there was a clip from our first podcast that I think is like one of the best pieces of content we've put out.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it might have like a few 100,000 views. So I'm excited to have you on again.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if I had a guest on my podcast that got me a couple 100,000 views,
yeah,
I'd be excited to have him back too.
Exactly.
No, I'm kidding, but thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I wanted to have you back on because, you know, you're a young guy. How old are you?
Recently turned 24.
24 years old, and I think you already made $300,000 as a real estate investor in the last 3 months.
Yep. Shout out to God, man. We're averaging around 100 grand a month right now.
Yeah, 100 grand a month. And I believe if you could do it, anyone can do it. So, not in a bad way.
It's like if
this guy can do 100K a month, anyone could do it. But so quick story before we go into everything. Can you tell people a little bit about yourself and then how you got into real estate?
Yeah. I got into real estate from a TikTok that my girlfriend sent me during the pandemic. Shout out to Stephanie. And then I got really lucky being able to get mentored by Ryan Pineda at Home Run Offer. I worked for him as a social media manager for like 2 years when he had, I think I was 500 subscriber, like 567 or something like that. You know, somewhere like under 1,000 for sure. And I got hired to be a social media manager because at the time I was in college and I had a YouTube channel with a little less than like 30,000 subscribers, 28, 29,000, something like that. Yeah. Which was, a lot more than what he had on YouTube at the time. So he was like, hey, I mean, you're credible enough to come help me with my social media. And I told him that I'd be super honored to. And what I really wanted to get in exchange was mainly just education on how real estate investing worked. And I got really fortunate because not only did I get that, but I was also getting a salary like as a social media manager. I learned how to find like wholesale deals, flip deals, like BRRRR deals.
Yeah.
Flipped houses with Home Run. About to do a deal with you now.
There we go.
As of yesterday, we just went into contract, so I'm excited there. And before like Ryan ever hired me, I told him my plan was to eventually just kind of go off on my own. And he told me, he's like, bro, more than half the people that I have hired have kind of told me that, but most people just end up staying, they don't want like the overhead or the stress or whatever reasons, and I was like, oh, good to know. I appreciate that. And I was, just receptive enough to the idea that, hey, look, like, who knows what's going to happen from here to, a couple of years from now. Maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe I won't or whatnot. But when the time came, my plans didn't really change. I felt like I had kind of learned everything I needed to know to kind of go off on my own. Had a conversation with Ryan and I was like, hey, I've kind of told you this every couple of months. That was still my plan and whatnot. And I think like the time has come, and he was super supportive, and I've just kind of been doing my own thing with like wholesaling, flipping houses, buying a couple rentals.
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question, kind of how I got started.
Yeah. So pretty much you started with Ryan. You started off doing real estate stuff for him and social media stuff for him.
Correct.
Interesting. Brianna, our new content manager here. But and now you're making over $100,000 a month.
Yeah, in revenue. I mean,
in revenue.
I gotta pay my employees and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
it's still great.
Yeah, I'm still pocketing a good amount.
So how are you 24 years old bringing in over $100,000 a month?
Oh man, I mean, dude, there's kind of like a lot that goes into it, right? Like, we do marketing, and we generate leads.
Then you close the leads.
Close the leads.
And then you get the profit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you generating leads?
So our bread and butter has always been free deals, meaning we hit the MLS. So, we go on sites like the actual MLS or, like Zillow, places like these. And we just find properties that are already listed like at a discount, and we just negotiate them to the price that we kind of need it at for it to make sense for us. And then we'll just buy that house, or we'll assign it to another investor, yourself, Pineda, anyone really, and we'll make a profit that way. So our main source of getting deals has always just been free sources such as the MLS or realtors and wholesalers who bring me deals. We've made, I mean, dude, as of December of last year, we had made 1.1 million in the last like 24 months off of that strategy alone. It's more than that now. I'd have to check exactly just from like free channels what it's at now. But yeah, free methods is a big way for us. We're also doing PPC, PPL, and I'm gonna start a new channel soon. We'll see which one exactly that is. But yeah, on the direct to seller marketing side, we're just doing like pay per click, pay per lead, and definitely going to add something in there, like some other form of inbound. I don't know what that's going to be just yet though.
Yeah. But okay, so you've made $1.1 million with free leads.
Correct.
Okay. I think a lot of people are going to hear that and they're not going to believe you. And I think they're not going to understand that you're wholesaling majority of them. So that means you're not even putting in money to flip them.
Right. Correct. And if anyone watches this and is like, oh, I don't believe that, send me a DM. I'll send you every single address and you'll see how much money we made on it.
Damn.
Yeah.
Actually, just put in the description.
Sure.
Can we do that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd have to, I'll put them all together like before this episode comes out and whatnot.
Okay.
And I don't have a problem with that. Like,
I think that's great. I think that's good.
Yeah.
But
Might take me a couple hours, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You might waste it a couple hours, but that's great.
Nah, Izzy, if you're watching this, I'll have my editing do it.
But okay, so like I said, a lot of people are gonna not believe that. So can you explain how you're doing that?
Sure. So with the free leads in particular, our main sources for marketing are we cold call realtors, we text realtors, we email blast realtors, and we submit lowball offers on the MLS. And then making like videos on social media gets people like in the market, like in Vegas, whether it be other realtors or wholesalers, like sending me deals as well. Not like I'm like famous or anywhere near that, but at least, and like, I don't really care to be either. As long as my little videos that get like 200 views are getting seen by the 200 people that I need to see them, that's been helping us out as well. So I would say those are the main, or not, I would say, I know those are the main ways of us getting like these free deals, just calling, texting, emailing, making offers on the MLS, and just making a couple of like little TikToks and Instagram reels. So that's how we get our deals for free.
Okay, for the next 15 minutes, I want to go step by step and teach someone how they could wholesale their first deal on the MLS.
Easy.
Yeah, and then if anyone ever watches this and ends up doing it, I want you to comment this below or send me a message on Instagram. And if you're listening to this, subscribe to this channel. But okay, so step one, if someone wants to wholesale off the MLS, what do they do?
So quick question. When you're saying, so what I was curious about is when you say off the MLS, do you mean specifically the strategy that I just said with submitting lowball offers on MLS? Or are you referring to just any method that's like free, such as like calling realtors, texting realtors? Because
let's do calling and texting realtors.
Okay.
That's been working for me. So I know it
sweet.
works.
Yeah, that's been working super well for us. I'll give you guys a 15-minute rundown, and to make it even better for you guys, I actually have made, I don't want to call it like, I mean, it is a training manual, but it's only like internal for my team, for like the people on my team, so they can learn directly from me, and like I train them and everything. So I have this like Google Drive of like all these training videos that teaches them like absolutely everything they need to know for their job to get these deals. What I'll do, if it's okay with you, I'll include a link to that Google Drive in the description here. Yeah. So if you're watching this, you want to learn like how to get deals from like cold calling realtors, like Davila just mentioned, just listen to these 15 minutes, but after that, go click on that Google Drive link that we're going to put in there. I'll even include, I'll include 20 actual like live calls that my team have done. I'll include some of my own, some of like one of my callers, some from another one of my callers. I'll even include calls that turn into like banger deals as well. Okay. So you guys can get like real call examples, and I'll teach them everything in like these little like in this Google Drive link. Okay. So cool, little perk for you guys watching this. Now to give you guys the rundown though. So here's essentially what you got to do. So number one, you got to go get a list of realtors. I recommend you pick a market. I'm sure, we could talk forever about how to pick a market, but just pick a market and then go download a list of every single realtor in that market. A couple ways to get that list. Number one, my favorite way is to go on the MLS and just download a list of every single realtor in your market.
Yeah.
Just straight off of the MLS. From there, you're going to want to upload that list to a dialer. A dialer is a system that calls multiple people at once. So you just put your headset on, you click dial on the computer, and the thing just starts calling. So I use ready mode, and it calls 3 people at once. So it'll ring 3 different lines, and then when one person answers, it'll stop ringing the other 2 people. So it helps you make more calls and like a less, it's just more efficient. So you're going to want to just start making calls. And if you don't know what to say, I'll even include like the script that my team uses in that Google Drive.
Yeah. So what is the script? Like walk
Sure.
me through the call.
So you want to role play it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll be the realtor. I'll be the caller.
Okay.
The only difference in the script is just depending on if you say that you have a deal or if you say that you don't have a deal.
Okay.
So
I'll say
depending
I don't
on
have a deal.
You'll say, okay.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this and you take action, which I really hope you do, Davila saying he doesn't have a deal is what 99% of people are going to tell you. So get used to it. So,
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll call you. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Brian, this is Ray with Monumental Realty. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. Can't complain. Hey, just calling to see if you might have any listings coming up that might work for maybe a fix and flip.
No, not right now.
Yeah, no worries. Is it all right if I just kind of stay in touch with you and whenever you might have one, I'm happy to have you represent me as my realtor and you can keep the full commission if that works with you.
Yeah, that works.
Cool. And that's it. From there, we wrap up the call. I send them a very quick text message, and then we just put them in our CRM. And depending on who that realtor is, we will stay in touch with them. So, we'll stay in touch with all of them, but depending on like how much business you do, that'll determine how frequently we stay in touch with you. So if you sell like 2 houses a year, you'll probably get a message from me like every 45, 60 days. If you're selling like 300 plus houses a year, I'm going to become best friends with you. I'm going to send you a message every 2 weeks. We're becoming Instagram friends. I know your kids' names, your birthday, everything.
Oh,
so,
boy.
And the thing that I think has like truly, truly helped me, I just went out to dinner with this husband and wife duo. They're realtors here, and they invited me to dinner, and we're actually doing our first deal together right now. And the husband tells me, he's like, you know what, Ray? Like, we get at least like 40 investors calling us all the time. And your name is the only name I've heard my wife bring up multiple times. So when we got a deal, we knew we had to like give it to you. And I don't think I did anything special, but if I had a guess and maybe I could ask them like what made them like want to give me the deal, I feel like and this is true, but I genuinely like cared about building a relationship with them. Like I've been following up with them for like 13 months, just because I know they do a lot of deals. And I just genuinely care to know like where they're from and everything. I know they're from Tennessee. I know their kids' names. I know how many kids they have, like all these things before we ever did a deal together. And my guess is people can just kind of sense when you actually like care and you're not just trying to get a paycheck out of it. So if I had to give some advice, I can't force someone to feel a certain way, but I would encourage you that if you can care, about the person you're chatting with, to see it as more than just like a paycheck. Because I think that's certainly helped me, get deals from people, whether it be from realtors, wholesalers, and whatnot. And I'm happy to include all that in training material. So that's what the role play looks like. That's how frequently we follow up with them.
Okay, let's say they do have a deal.
Sure.
What does that look like?
Okay, for sure. So let's say that they do have a deal. The first thing that I like to ask them is I like to ask them if they already have. So here's how I say it actually. I say, oh, fantastic. Do you already have a listing agreement in place so that you can possibly share the address with me? And the reason I say it that way, I used to just say, so if someone says, hey, they have a deal, I used to get all excited and be like, great, what's the address? But what I noticed is a lot of these realtors, like when they say they have something, it more so, you're right, they don't have a contract on it. It's just they have like a pretty good lead or whatnot. And me asking for the address, a lot of them kind of put like a wall up because they don't know me. They don't know if like my plan is get the address and steal the deal from them or anything. So I asked them if they already have a listing agreement, and then I say so that you can so that you can possibly share the address with me. And that has like completely just like taken down like all barriers, because I know what my true intention is. It's never to go cut somebody out of a deal. Like I will never like ruin my reputation doing some stupidity like that. So that's why I asked them like, hey, I asked them if they have the listing agreement so that they can share the address with me. 99% of the time they end up sending me the address regardless of if they have the agreement in place or not. I still like to ask that question though. So once they send over the address, I'll punch it in Zillow real quick. Most of the time, these properties have not yet hit the MLS. So then I'll just bring up something, like whatever catches my eye. It could be anything. It could be that it's in a good area. It could be that the Google Street images were like recently updated. It could be whatever. Really, my intention there is just kind of make a tiny bit of small talk before I ask them like my first sales question, which is, so for example, you just told me you picked up 2 properties in Henderson. Let's say you had sent those over to me. I'd look on Zillow real quick. I'd be like, dang, I mean, these houses are in a great area. What's even got them considering selling it? That's always like my first like real sales question when I'm on a call here. I want to find out, because ultimately as investors, we only make money if we buy houses at a discount. I mean, that's not news to you, but we can only buy houses at a discount if there's motivation there. So because I've never met a non-motivated seller who was like, hey Ray, buy my house like half off. Like that doesn't happen. So I asked them like, what's got them considering selling? Because I want to know, is there a motivated seller here? Like, is there a foreclosure coming up? Is there, like a divorce? Is there something that's going to cause someone to want to sell their house, fast, in exchange for not getting as much money as they could make if they were to like list it on the market, paint it themselves, change the carpet, like do all these things. And if there is motivation there, then I'm certainly going to entertain it a little bit more. So I'll ask them like when it is that they're looking to close by, and I'll make it very clear that I can close on their timeline. We're very fortunate to have a lot of like private money. So I can close a flip in, I don't know, 24 hours if as soon as title can close really. Or I can extend it out 60, 90 days if that's what the seller needs as well. So I like to ask the realtor that. Then my next question I ask them, besides price, of course, is there anything else that the seller is hoping to get, such as maybe assistance moving, such as a lease back? Is there anything that could help the seller out? I like to ask that question because a lot of people, they think it's just about like numbers, and sure, like numbers are important to a certain degree, but I can't even tell you how many deals we've gotten because we were able to give the seller a 7-day lease back, a 30-day lease back, or we've gotten maybe another dozen deals because we were able to help the seller literally move to their next home. I've paid 10 grand out of like my profit to move a seller from Las Vegas all the way to South Carolina or South Dakota, excuse me, or even sellers that we've helped move from Pahrump to Vegas, or just one side of Vegas to another side of Vegas, whatever. Asking that question has certainly helped us get more deals. I ask a little bit after that about the condition of the property. I don't spend more than like a minute or two on that. And then lastly, I'm going to ask them what do they feel is kind of like a fair price. And that's pretty much the script. Then from there, it's just kind of up to me to figure out if that number works for me or not. If the number doesn't work for me, which is 90% of the time,
I was gonna say, what do you do when
then I'm gonna tell them like what number will work for me. And if that gets my offer accepted, fantastic. And if not, then I'm just gonna follow up with you and either get it at a later date, or somebody else will pay more, or heck, someone might do a better job than me at closing it. And that doesn't happen like too often, but I'm not perfect. So one of those 3 things is gonna happen. Either I buy it, someone else buys it, or we end up, some numbers change. Maybe the house is worth more. I don't know. Like there's another comp and I can pay you more, or they come down on price or whatever. So that's typically one of the 2 or 3 scenarios that ends up happening.
Got it. So I know a lot of people are going to hear all that and think like, okay, well, how do you get people down in price? Because typically you need to get the seller or the agent down. So how do you do that?
Sure. So the best way that I've found to get people down on price is you gotta. So it's like a lever, I guess. Like if if like one side goes up, like one side comes down or whatnot, or like a seesaw, I should say. So I will try to bring something to the table in exchange for like a lower price. So for example, we have a deal that I just got like 2 weeks ago from a realtor. I think we're about to close on it in like 3 days. And I was not the highest offer. But so right now we're what today's what April 4th, April 5th, something like that. There was an offer like $15,000 higher than me, but the seller is like retiring as a school teacher here in Clark County, and they need to stay in that property until the end of the school year because it's just like too much of a hassle for them if like all these things going on. And I was willing to let them stay like another 45 days as opposed to this other offer that came in. I think they were like $15,000 higher than me, but they're like, no, you got to be out of the property like the day we close. So that's an example of like, hey, look, I was able to get them down on price by me just coming up with, just coming in with something else that was valuable to that person that wasn't necessarily money. So that's, to answer your question, the biggest way that I would say I get people just to kind of come down to my price is by having a really good understanding of what their situation is, like why they want to sell, what they're looking to accomplish, what's ideal for them. I always ask, like, what's like a picture perfect scenario for you or for your seller. And then I just provide value based on those things. And this is my price. And I'm not saying it always works, like if it always worked, I'd be a billionaire.
Yeah.
But it's worked, almost 100 times now. So.
All right, so let's go over the numbers. Like, how many offers do you typically need to make in order to get a deal?
Yeah, so I've been tracking that data for a while now, and what I've noticed is it varies a lot. So, for instance, and also like what's considered an offer as well, because for like the first year and a half, I want to say, I was only making offers on properties on the MLS if we were already somewhere close on like what they were listed for and like what I could pay. If we were within 15% or something, then I would just make an offer. Nowadays, like we're making offers on everything, so it's like, it's very, it really depends like what you're offering on or whatnot. If you're making offers on like only things that you're within like 10 to 15% of like price on, 1 in 20 is probably what you're going to be at. But if you're offering on everything on the MLS, you're probably going to be closer to like 1 in like 3,000. At least that's kind of what it's looking like right now. A couple months ago though, it was maybe closer to like 1 in 6,000. Where right now it's a little bit better, right? We don't have to make as many offers to get a deal. At one point though, offering on everything on the MLS, we were sending out about 125 offers a day and getting on average 1 deal a week. So like 125 times what 5 is, I want to say like 600 maybe. I don't know. I dropped out of college. But if you can do the math, right?
Yeah.
120. So it really just varies. But what I would encourage you to do is not even kind of to go off of like one of these numbers. I would say just offer on as many things as you can, have as many conversations as you possibly can. And that's gonna get you like better results than anything really.
Yeah. What about like how do people like make an offer? Are you offering like 75% of market value,
No.
10% off the list price? Like, how do they figure that out?
Yeah. So when I was a little bit like earlier into my career, a question I would get pretty often was, "Hey Ray, do you recommend finding the deal first or finding the buyer first?" And I would always say go find the deal first, because that's what was taught to me, and that's what like a lot of people did. But I've actually found a lot more success finding the buyer first, because if I know, like, let's say, and if you're gonna flip it, then it's pretty easy to determine what you're gonna offer. Just figure out what works for you. But most people, for their first couple of deals, they're probably gonna do a wholesale. What I would recommend, based on what's worked for me, go talk to your buyers and find out what it is that they're looking for, and then just kind of reverse engineer that. So for example, Brian just asked like, "Hey, are you offering like 75%? Or are you offering like 10% off a list price?" It doesn't really matter unless you know what your buyer's willing to pay. So if like your buyer's willing to pay 100% of ARV, which I mean, none of my buyers are, but if you had a buyer, let's say, willing to pay 100% of ARV, why wouldn't you lock it up, for 90% of ARV and just assign it for 10%? But if your buyers, let's say they're only willing to pay like 75% of ARV, 80% of ARV, like 90% of buyers are, then you're gonna have to lock it in like lower than that. And then how much lower just depends on how much money you want to make. If you want to make $5,000, which I mean, I really wouldn't even recommend like trying to make $5,000 to be honest with you. But let's say, you know, something more like realistic. Let's say you want to make like $25,000, which is around our average deal right now. If you know what your buyers are willing to pay, then maybe offer $35,000 lower than that and negotiate, you know, the other 10 if you need to, and then go make 25 grand assigning it. So to answer your question, I can't really tell someone like what, you know, what to offer. For me, I always chat with my buyers if I'm wholesaling it. I'm like, yo, what do you think you'd have to be at for something like this? And then I just kind of go and like get the job done.
Got it. Okay. So we went over the strategy, we went over the numbers. I guess like which method, if someone's trying to get their first deal, should they do? Should they look at only distressed properties that are already below market value, or just go and make an offer on everything?
So if you're looking to get your first deal, I actually, in my opinion, I wouldn't do either of those. What I would do is I would do kind of what we talked about earlier with cold calling realtors. And the reason for that is those two things that, you know, your two suggestions of should you offer on everything or only offer on things that are already kind of distressed. I feel like once a property is on the MLS, all eyes are on those properties. And if you're looking to do your very first deal, chances are you're not a very good negotiator. You don't really understand like the process, how wholesaling or how buying houses works. And if the listing agent, the seller's realtor, is like any sort of an experienced realtor, these agents are not stupid. They're going to be able to like sniff out like what a non like qualified buyer looks like. And if like 10 other people are calling them, the likelihood of you getting that deal is not very high. So what I would actually recommend that a brand new person does is just cold call realtors all day long, because I've found there is a lot less competition on those deals. We can get those deals significantly more discounted. And the agents typically going to be those agents are typically more willing to work with us because we're offering like 6% commission, which I mean, we can offer that on the MLS as well, but for some reason they're like a little more taboo. So yeah, I would just cold text realtors if you're looking to get your first deal. And ironically, our biggest deals have came from cold calling realtors. Like we just closed a $50,000 wholesale from cold calling realtors, not even a flip, a wholesale. We closed like a $65,000 wholesale, a $61,000 wholesale, a $45,000, $40,000. Like we've closed a lot of relatively bigger size just wholesales. And I mean flips as well from cold calling realtors. So that's exactly what I would do if you're brand new, and especially if you don't have a lot of money, then all day. And if you don't have a lot of like sales experience, then even better, you know. So there's someone watching this who's like, hey, I have no money, no experience, like this is exactly for you.
Yeah.
Because you can cold call realtors for like $125 a month, which in the world of marketing, $125 a month is like pennies, you know, like a drop in the bucket. So that's what I would do to get started.
Okay. And then I guess like if it's so easy, why doesn't everyone just do it?
Good question. I mean, I started doing it in 2020. We're in 2024 and I haven't stopped, you know? So,
Have you seen it not work for some people?
only for the people who quit too soon.
How long do you think it would take someone to get their first deal? I know that's a dumb question, but I know people are going to think that.
Yeah. And I don't think it's a dumb question. I think it's like a question that's not a one size fits all.
Yeah. I think it's a commitment question.
Yeah.
Anytime someone's asking me like, well, how fast can I do this? It's like, bro, just do it. Don't
Yeah.
question it. Just go do it, because they're just looking. If you say 3 months, realistically, their brain shuts off most of the time. They're
Right.
not going to stay doing it for 3 months.
So
If you say 30 days, they're like, I might do it. But
yeah. So something that I found to work well for me, like in all aspects of my life, is just setting the proper expectations with people. At least what I consider to be the proper expectations. Even if it's not something that, you know, you're watching this, it's like, oh man, it's not what I wanted to hear. At least I can speak to you from what my truth is. It took me 9 months of doing it every single day before I got my first deal. Now, granted, everyone that's like joined my team, or, you know, that I've like given advice to or whatever, has done it in substantially lesser time than 9 months. But hey, it took me 9 months. The top sales guy on my team, It took him 3 months to get his first deal. Granted, at the time when I hired him almost 2 years ago, I was not very good at training, and honestly, I'm probably still not very good at training. I mean, I
You're
think
kind
I'm
of
a lot better.
long-winded, but it's all good.
Yeah. But you know, like he's the top guy on my team now, and it took him 3 months. We have an intern who got his first deal in like 10 days. I had another intern who got his first deal his first day. Had another intern who got his first deal his first day as well. I had a guy who took like 3 months, another guy who took like 3.5 months, had a guy that took 4 months.
So an average of 3 months, we'll say.
Sure.
Yeah,
you know,
I think 3 months is a good test to see like how good you're doing. And if you're doing it for 3 months and you're rather not getting any leads, then it's a you problem. You're not good at like discovery. And then if you're getting leads but not closing them, then that just means you need help from like a closer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that kind of could go into it. So, for example, I can't remember who it was, but I either saw on like a podcast or something, and you might know who said this. I can't remember, but someone's been trying to like get in shape for years, and by going, you know, like they want to get buff, they'll go to the gym like once a week, you know, and not like I'm some fitness guru or anything. I think ironically, Brianna behind the camera,
Brianna's buffer than both
she's
of
like
us.
she could bench my whole like she could bench my whole existence, but I think a lot of it's not so much like the time, but like what you kind of do in that time, you know. So I'm sure you know people that like, hey Brian, I've been trying to get my first deal for like 2 years now, but it's like they make a phone call every 2 months, you know. So so if you're really trying to get a deal, here's some like actual numbers. Everyone on my team whose job is to cold call, they have to have at least 70 conversations per day. To have 70 conversations in a day, it's going to take us like 130, 135 phone calls, which you should be able to do that in like 4 or 5 hours.
So you have like a 50% pickup rate?
Yeah, for direct agent.
And that's on the dialer, or that's
on the
for
dialer.
cell phone?
No, that's on the dialer.
Got it.
Yeah, so our pickup rate has been really good the last like 8 or 9 months.
Got it.
And we don't even do anything special. We just like literally, I just kind of shared all we do for cold call. But that's only direct to agent. We don't do like too much direct to seller cold call, but when we did, our pickup rate was like way less than that.
Yeah,
So,
like 1%.
but what I would encourage you to do, bare minimum 70 conversations per day. And if you want to track your conversations the same way that I track my team's conversations, anytime that the person on the other end of the phone says a word to you, that's considered a conversation. So, for example, you'll run into a couple different scenarios when you call someone and you hit them with your pitch, like, "Hey, this is Ray, Monumental Realty," you know, whatever. If they just immediately hang up on you, I don't count that as a conversation. But even if they pick up the phone, they're like, "No, screw you, stop calling me." Well, at least I know there's like a living person on the other end of the phone. That's considered a conversation. So we need to have at least 70 of those per day. And if you really want to push yourself, something that I just made this tweak like 4 or 5 days ago on my team. Ultimately, conversations are not what gets us paid. It's like leads that turn into deals. So now the requirement is not just 70 conversations. It's 70 conversations minimum plus 1 lead a day. Like no matter what, you need to get 1 lead a day. If you're at 70 conversations and you haven't gotten 1 lead, keep going. And because you can get 70 conversations like 4 or 5 hours. So and granted, it's only been like 4 or 5 days of me saying, hey, like minimum 1 lead, but we've been getting more leads, and I'm pretty sure more leads will eventually get more deals. So that's what I would recommend you do if you really want to get a deal. But then there's like other things I would also recommend as well if like someone really wants to get a deal. For instance, yes, you got to be consistent with making your phone calls, but there's also a lot of other skills that you got to learn as well. You got to learn how to determine like how much is this property even worth. For instance, quick little funny story, because I don't want you guys making this same mistake. Our 2 biggest assignment fees, right? So one of them was $65,000, one of them was $61,000. Both of those came from realtors, and ironically, both times that we got those deals, the realtor told us like, yeah, we sent this to another investor, but they said like it was like too much work for them, or, you know, like the numbers didn't make sense, or, you know, they had something like that. And so the other investor passed on it. And I'm wondering, like, I'm not even buying this thing. I'm just wholesaling it and making over 60 grand. And so I just wonder, I'm like, why did that other person pass on it? Did they not see the ARV correctly? Did they not like have enough exit strategies? Like what could be the case? So my encouragement for anyone watching this is, yes, you have to be consistent with like making your phone calls, but you should also invest in yourself, like the time, like invest time into learning how to comp properties, how to find buyers, how to determine what houses are worth, how to determine, is it better to wholesale this, better to flip this, better to keep it as a rental? Because what I just wouldn't want for someone is to pass up on a deal where someone else in your market comes and makes over 60 grand just finding a buyer on it. Like, you know, I'd rather that be you, unless you're in Vegas, and I'd rather it be me. But yeah, I would just like not only make calls, like learn all these other things that you need to learn as well. Because just knowing how to make calls, like, you know, like that's not really enough.
Yeah. What about, so we went over time, we went over script, we went over KPIs. What else do people need to know to get their first deal for free?
I definitely think you need to learn how to comp properties. So for example, right, like let's say you think a house is worth 300,000 ARV, and an experienced investor looks at it and it's like, this thing is worth 400,000 all day long. I would hate for someone to put in like all this work making phone calls and whatnot just for them to miss an opportunity because they didn't know like what they had right in front of them. So to answer your question, I mean, I think all that stuff that you named off is important to learn. But I would say the top two are the cold calling realtors, learning how to comp. Top three: cold call realtors, learn how to comp, and learn how to find buyers. And if it's okay with you, because this isn't my podcast, obviously, I'll even include a video down below to like a training video that I've made, or a collection of training videos that I've made specifically for my team, so they can learn exactly how like I comp properties. And I mean, my team's been doing this for like a couple of years now, but I can share with you guys like the exact same training material. So after you watch this podcast, you know how to make the cold calls, you know how to comp the properties. And I don't think I've ever made like training videos on how to find buyers, because I'm normally the one like displaying the deals. But I'll even go ahead and, like, if it's okay with you, of course, I'll make a training video. And I just say that because like it's not my this isn't my channel, if it's cool with you, I'll make a video showing people, hey, like here's how you find buyers. So really there shouldn't be like any excuses on like why you can't do this. And you brought up KPIs. So if you guys really want, I'll even make a video like how to track KPIs, what KPIs to track, why it's important to track KPIs, and like how to read that data, so you know like what to do with that data in the future as well. So like really there's no reason someone watching this can't make like at least 100 grand. Like there's just really like 100 grand is kind of weak actually. But like for your first year, that's not bad.
Okay. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay. So, all right. So let's say someone's listening to this and they already have done a deal or whatever, but now they want to build a team. So how does someone build a team doing what you're doing?
Okay. So I would say the first step in building a team is like figuring out like what your end goal is, right? Like, for example, if I wanted to make 30 grand a month, I could probably, I mean, you could for sure do that by yourself. But let's say my goal was, hey, I want to make 30 grand a month and not have to work. Like I want to take my 30 grand and like, pay my bills, live my lifestyle, but I want to be traveling like with my family and spending, 20 to 30 grand a month. If that's what you like, I would figure out why it is that you want to build a team in the first place. Because 99% of the population, I'm sure, would be happy making like 20 to 30 grand a month. So once you have figured that out, then you can start like reverse engineering, like, okay, what does the team need to look like? So for instance, if all you want to make is like 30 grand a month, you could 100% do that by yourself. But if you want to make 30 grand a month and not really have to work at all, then I would recommend just hiring one person, teach them how to find leads, how to close leads, and how to dispo deals. And that's pretty much
But then why would they want to work for you then?
Maybe you're the person paying for the marketing if you're doing direct to seller, or what I mean? Like,
but I'm saying if they want their team to be set up to do what you're doing.
Okay, if you want your team like set up to do like what my team's doing, that really just depends again on like what your goal is, right?
They want to make money. They want to make $1 million a year.
Sure. Okay. You want to make $1 million a year. Here's like what my team is currently set up. So I have one guy, his job is just to generate leads from realtors. So he's all those strategies that we talked about earlier, cold calling realtors, cold texting realtors, emailing, submitting offers on the MLS. He is in charge of that. Now, granted, we have some like interns that are also cold calling and whatnot, but we have like one main guy whose job is just kind of like oversee all of that.
And how much do you pay that person?
So he's on the $2,000 monthly draw,
Mm-hmm.
and he gets 5 to 10% commission
Mm-hmm.
on any leads. And the 5 to 10%, it just kind of depends. He's incentivized certain like revenue numbers. So if he's like hitting, we want to do at least 100 grand a month. So if the company, if he's like, if the company as a whole is like doing 100 grand a month, then whatever he brought in, he's going to get 10% on. If it's not 100 grand that month, then it's going to be 5%. But we're averaging 100 a month right now anyway. So so that's how he's paid. Now, any leads that he generates or the cold callers like underneath him generate, they go directly to my acquisitions guy. He's closing all these deals. He's following up with people that he didn't close, and so he gets all our direct to seller leads and all our direct to agent leads as well. His job is to close them. My job, I was the closer and the dispo guy up until like 2 months ago. Now I'm only the dispo guy, and shout out to Jerry on my team. He's been doing a great job closing these leads. So you would need a dispo guy. Eventually, I will hire that out, but for now, it's me. And I'm also the guy raising money for our flips. So those are like, we just talked about like marketing, acquisitions, dispositions. Then we have Isabella or Izzy on our team, who's our TC/admin. She just kind of keeps the flow going, does like all the paperwork. Make sure that so like as salespeople, we kind of suck at like putting stuff in the CRM. So she does like quality control to make sure none of the fields were missed in the CRM. And then I have my dad on my team as well, who's my project manager for all of my flips. I literally don't do anything. Like literally nothing. I don't even step foot in these properties unless I want to make like a little TikTok or something. But he takes care of managing like all the construction and making sure it all gets done on time and on budget. And that's what our team looks like, for like $1 million a year.
And then how much do you pay the closer?
He gets 10%.
10%.
And he's on the $2,000 monthly salary.
Okay, so the marketer and the closer both get a $2,000.
So the marketer, he's
a
on
draw.
a draw.
Got it.
My closer, he's the first person I ever hired. I didn't even know like what a draw was at the time. So I was like, hey, look, you're an employee. I think
like
employees get
draws, underwear?
salaries.
What are you talking about?
So he's on the $2,000 salary plus 10% commission. And he's making good money. Like he's about to go on like a 2-week trip to Spain or something. I'm like, damn, bro, like take me.
Okay, there you go. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess so. You think you could do $1 million a year with 2 people?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, for sure. Like for sure. Even if you're one of those 2 people, I think you could do $1 million a year with yourself and like one other like really, really like high performer, and maybe like a TC or something. I definitely think you could do that.
And how long did it take for your marketing person to get good? And how many people did you go through in that position?
We haven't had any turnover. So he was the first person I hired for that position. And good is like such a like weird term because I mean, he got his first deal in like 20 something days. Okay. So,
like 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about closers? How many closers have you had?
Only him or me. And then I removed myself from that role. So let me backtrack. Up until 2, maybe 3 months ago, I was the closer, and the guy who's like currently my closer, he was my lead manager. So we used to have like a different process where the lead would come in from my marketing guy. It would go to my lead manager at the time, and my lead manager would qualify the lead, this and that. And if it was like anything worth, if it was like worth making an offer on, he would send it to me, and I would negotiate and I would get the job done. I ended up getting advice from someone who's like doing like way better than me, saying, hey, those 2 roles on my company are the exact same position. You want to have the person who's like following up, like having like rapport with that seller or with that realtor. So when that person is like finally 100% ready to sell, the same person who's been following up, they have all the rapport. It's gonna be like more likely to get accepted. Your offer to get accepted, as opposed to them just passing the lead off to you and you try to do like a 1-call close. I was like, okay, that makes sense. So at that point, I had a decision to make. And the decision that I ended up making was, hey, look, the guy, Jerry, who was my lead manager, he works really hard. He like doesn't miss a beat. So I decided to just kind of give him the role of the closer. And I mean, look, like he 100% earned it, and he earns his job every single day. So he does that, and then I do the all the dispo. So that's how it's set up now. But that's not how it was set up like before.
Got it. Okay. And then what about, let's talk about competition.
Okay.
Because I know a lot of people are going to listen to this, and we've spoken to a lot of students over the years at Wealthy Investor and Future Flipper, where they're like, well, Ray, this all sounds great, but I'm in a competitive market.
Boo-hoo. Okay, so put it this way. I recently turned 24, and I got into this when I was late into 20. So like I was like a couple months from turning 21. I had never done a deal before. Didn't come from like a rich family by any means. Like, no, grew up as tenants, all that stuff. So no connections, like nothing like that. When I first like got into the business, Vegas, I mean, it still is like one of the most competitive markets in the US, but how many guys can you think of in here that are doing like a lot of deals? Like there's a lot of like big players
at
in
least
here.
10 or more.
And at the time, I was a full-time college student. I had a job as Pineda's social media manager, and I was kind of starting to do like this whole like real estate, like wholesale and flipping thing, like on my own, and still like having like my personal life, like my girlfriend, my family, like my health, all that, my faith, everything else. So if you're feeling like, oh man, there's like so much competition in the market, it's just business. Like I'd rather kind of be like in a market where there's competition, because competition means there's like money to be made. So like if a 20-year-old could do it, like while I was still in college and like all these other things, I wouldn't shy away from competition. I think, on the contrary, I wouldn't go to a market that had no competition. Like who wants to be like, oh, I'm only a per flipper, like get out of here.
But what
dude.
about like, I know before you used to kind of struggle with mindset where you were like you weren't afraid of competition, but I feel like you were really hard on yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
How did you get out of that? Because I don't hear that from you as much.
Yeah, I mean, I still think I am like pretty critical of myself, but maybe I think the biggest difference is like that's just something that's like internal now and not something I've like really like vocalized too often. Because, for instance, right?
But you used to make videos and stuff, remember?
Yeah. But ultimately, I think I've just kind of found like I think the biggest problem that I had back then was I would like really tie like my self-worth a lot to like how I was doing in business. And I think the reason for that was because I was like just pouring everything that I had into this business, and I still am, but I'm like, bro, like my self-worth isn't what Jesus says that I am. So like I still have like bad days, bad weeks, bad months. Like I still lose money sometimes, and I'm not gonna go as far as saying like I don't care, because that's certainly not true. But like I definitely don't care like as much, like if I lost like $500 like a couple of years ago, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like how could I have been so stupid? Now I'm like, damn, like I've always known I was an idiot, and like move on, like it is what it is. So and I guess like something else that's kind of helped me is like every time I've made a mistake, like we're still here, dude. Like we're and have more money now than I did whenever that happened. So like somehow we figured out X, Y, and Z mistake, recovered from it. And I also know I'm gonna make a lot more mistakes, and like it is what it is.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Because I remember we had a few conversations, and then I remember you making videos like, "Damn, dude, like we didn't do well this month, and I'm freaking pissed."
No, for sure. And I think a lot of it also comes with like I have a saying on my wall, put a little poster up, and it says always grateful but never satisfied. And I definitely still take that to heart. But for instance, if if I was like a 22-year-old and I was like, Brian, I only took home 25 grand this month, like I'm like, oh man, like boohoo, like cry me a river, kid. So so nowadays it's like like oh, like a bad month, we didn't make 100 grand, like not that I'm gonna like accept that, but I'm still gonna count my blessings. So I think that's the best way I could say it. Like I still just count my blessings even when I'm like a little frustrated. So
what about like, so what are some of the struggles that you've been having now at this current level?
So a mutual friend of ours, a couple years ago, he said something, and I think it kind of like applies to me a lot right now. He said new levels means new devils. Roham said that to me once, and I have no idea what he was referring to at the time. But
That's so funny.
But like for instance, a couple years or a couple months ago, like the only marketing we did was like direct to agent marketing. And now we're doing, you know, like the PPCs, the PPLs, like all this stuff. The biggest issue that I'd say we're having right now is the return that I'm getting is not really like what I want to be getting. So right now, what my job is I'm trying to figure out like, okay, how can I decrease like my cost per lead? How can I be more profitable on like every single deal that we're making? How can I like basically increase my my return on ad spend?
ROAS.
Yeah, increase my ROAS, and like even decrease like cash conversion cycle. Like I've found those two things to be like the more I focus on those two things, like the more money we make. And there is someone who, like in the past, I'm confident. I saw a video of someone saying like, "Oh, those are like the two biggest things that you need to focus on." And I was like, whatever. But I kind of like accidentally stumbled upon that myself, and I was like, huh, whoever said that, you know, in a video, like I agree with them. So if I ever find that video, I'll like give that person props. But
I thought you were leaving the description of this video too.
if I find that video,
yeah, if it's okay
I'll leave
with
the
you,
link to
Brian,
it. Yeah.
I saw this TikTok 5 years ago, and I would love to place it.
Yeah. But no, really, like I know it's like kind of funny, but it's true. Like that is the biggest like thing we're struggling with right now. I just want to increase like what I'm, you know, what I'm making on like.
So
on
what is the
ROI.
ROAS? What's your current ROAS and cash conversion?
Yeah.
cycle?
So it really just depends on like the marketing channel, but overall, we're sitting at like a 3x ROAS.
On everything or
Well, we're no, not on everything, only on PPC and PPL.
what is it on cold calling agents?
Dude, it's like 30. Like
30,
it's insane.
Yeah.
Because you know I'm spending a couple $100 a month, and we're making like tens of thousands a month. So it's insane. But I want to, and you know, and I think we have that like pretty dialed in. Like I would probably like if there was like an Olympics for it, I'd feel pretty confident that I could like go to the Olympics for like cold calling realtors.
Would you represent Puerto Rico or the United States?
Dude, let's go Puerto Rico, man.
There we go, baby.
Let's go Puerto Rico. Mira, viva PR, puñeta.
Okay, let's be.
Mira, 787.
If those are curse words, we'll bleep them out. But okay, so ROAS, you said 3. What about cash conversion cycle?
Yeah. So the cash conversion cycle, it's different for like a wholesale or for a flip, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Last year, so
Flip it to eternity, so we don't we don't really know it's too long.
Yeah.
What about for wholesaling?
Yeah. So last year for wholesaling is around 30 days, and
Oh, that's really low.
but this year's it's like 21 to 22.
Wait, so how are you calculating cash conversion cycle in your head?
Yeah, so it's from the day we spend the money to the day we make money.
21 days?
Yeah, but here's why. So for direct to seller marketing, currently we're only doing PPC and PPL. You don't get charged, like it's not like a TV commercial where I'm going to spend all this money running TV commercials today, and then maybe someone calls me in like a month or two. Like with PPC, like my card gets charged like the second I get the lead.
Yeah.
So if I get a lead today, a lot of these leads that we get from PPC or PPL, like, or not a lot of these leads, excuse me, a lot of the deals that we end up closing, we lock the seller up the same day that we get the lead. And so cash conversion cycle is really like you can only like count it once a deal has closed. And out of the deals that we have closed from like those channels, most of them we ended up putting under contract like the same day that they called in from like our ad on Google. Granted, we still have a lot of them that are like in a follow-up sequence, but I can't figure out what the cash conversion cycle is until that person has actually closed. And as of now, the majority of the ones that have closed are people who were like basically looking to sign a contract the same day that they called us. So for those reasons, with PPC and PPL, our cash conversion cycle is like in the low 20s. However, I'm sure like now that we're about to add some other form of marketing, which I don't know what that'll be just yet, it'll most likely increase. Let's say, for instance, we do like, I don't think we're going to do TV commercials, but let's say, for example, we did. Someone might, I might spend 10 grand today on TV commercials, and someone's watching my commercial for 3 months, and then they call in, I got to figure out like, okay, well, I spent that money 3 months ago, and now we're making money on them. So, but that's not the case right now, though. Right now, we spend the money, we get the lead the same day, and then we close them.
How much are you paying for leads for PPC and then for PPL?
So for PPC, the way that I factor like how much I'm paying per lead, I look at what I spent the entire month on ads plus on the management fee that I spend, or that I'm charged, I should say. And then I just divide that by how many leads I got. And the reason I say that is because I know some people, they don't factor in the management fee, but for me, like we have to pay that to get the leads anyway. So I just say that as a caveat. But when you include those two things, I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you the number, but I pay $683 for every single PPC lead that comes in. And for PPL, it's a lot lower. But it also depends on like the PPL company. So I would say like we're around like $350.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was paying too.
Yeah.
About 375. And then Cali, in some markets, I was paying like 270 to 275. But they were in like rural markets, so it's almost like paying for leads in like Elko or something like that, or Pahrump and stuff like that.
That annoys me because I hate how like Clark County is such a big county. Like when I talk to some of our mutual friends in like other cities and states, they have like 50 counties in their state, and Clark County
Is one.
Right, and so it also covers all these areas that like. Do you buy houses in Ely, Nevada? I couldn't even point out a map and tell you where Ely, Nevada is. But unfortunately, when we tell a PPL company that we buy in Clark County, if someone wants to sell their house in like Pahrump, Overton, like Ely, whatever, we have to pay for those as well. It's like, bummer. So that's my only critique.
Got it. What do you think as far as like business wise is your biggest bottleneck?
Right now it's just kind of like, I really, really do think it's figuring out how to increase our ROAS, because I think if we can increase our ROAS, then I can just grow everything. So for example, let's say like a 1x ROAS would mean like you spend $1 and you make $1, right? Like that's basically just breaking even. Let's something extreme, right? Like 30x ROAS, which is what we're seeing on cold calling realtors. Imagine, and I'm not saying this is realistic, but imagine if you could get a 30x ROAS on like everything you did, right?
Yeah.
Then that the opportunities would be endless.
Yeah.
So I think right now, us being at like roughly a 3x ROAS, not that that's terrible, but if I can figure out how to get that to like a 4 or a 5 without spending any more money on marketing or like hiring more personnel or anything like that, I think that in and of itself would give me two options. Option number one is to be more profitable, or option number two, well, you still have to be more profitable, but then that would give me the ability to reinvest even more of the money into just like more marketing or hiring more people or whatever I think is like needed at that point to grow the company. So to answer your question, yeah, I really think the biggest bottleneck right now is just me figuring out how I can increase like my return on ad spend or my return on investment, so we can be more profitable and then like take that money to grow the company even more.
How much are you spending on PPC a month and PPL?
So PPC, I spend 10 grand on ads, and then I pay $27.50 as a management fee. And then PPL, it really varies because for those watching that don't know, you set your budget with the PPL company, and they will charge you up to that amount if they have like that many enough leads to provide to you. But on average, we're spending like roughly like 8-ish, like 7,800 to 80 something hundred. So call it like 8 grand, $8 grand a month on just PPL.
So you're spending about 20 grand a month in marketing.
Yeah.
Got it. And then you're averaging about 60K a month in profit from it. That would be a 3 ROAS, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, but you said like profit. I was thinking like revenue. But
revenue,
yeah, so
yeah.
we'll bring in from those channels alone, like, yeah, we'll bring in maybe like 65,000, you know, and then obviously from that, if it's the only person I have to pay commission to on those deals would be my acquisitions guy. So he would get like 10% of those. And then the rest of the money that we're bringing in is from like our free channels and stuff like that. So that's kind of what that breakdown looks like.
Got it. And then what do you think as far as, besides increasing your ROAS, what's another bottleneck in your business? Well, actually, that's not even a bottleneck. That's a problem. That's not a bottleneck.
I can agree with that. I say then the next thing is just me being, I firmly believe that I will always be the bottleneck. On, like if I had the knowledge, let's say, if my goal is to build this like huge real estate company, for example, if I had like Grant Cardone's knowledge, I'm sure my little company would be a lot bigger and we'd be more profitable and like all that stuff. So I guess the next thing would just be like me increasing my knowledge, because ultimately like I'm the driver of the company. So I'm just trying to learn more how I can be better, like not only as like a real estate investor, but just like as an owner of a business.
Yeah.
And what does that really entail? Well, I just have to chat with like people who know more than I do, be like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what my business looks like here, like what my KPIs look like. And maybe someone can point out a problem that I don't see. I don't know. So
Let's look at the ROAS problem.
Okay.
Like, let's try to see if we can figure it out.
Sure. And I can tell you like what I think is
What
the
is
issue.
the problem?
Granted, our sample size is still a little bit smaller.
Okay.
So I'll let you know.
Okay.
But for now, here are like the two biggest problems that I've seen with PPC and PPL. We're like pulling teeth to make these deals, like just to be profitable, because a lot of the leads that we're getting, they're not really stuff in our buy box. So for example, we got a mobile home out in Pahrump. Like, one, I don't really do mobile homes, and two, I definitely don't do anything out in Pahrump. But I'm like, oh man, just paid $683 for this lead. Like, what am I gonna do? Not call it? So we locked it up, and we ended up locking it up as like a subject to, and somehow we made 20 grand on that deal. Now, that's been the story of like the majority of like these like leads that we have closed from like PPC and PPL. And my guess as to why like our ROAS isn't like as high as I would like for it to be is because the properties that we're kind of dealing with, like these are not really like the properties that we typically deal with. Like I don't typically deal with like $100,000 homes out in a city I've never been to in like my entire life, So if we can get like more leads that are like exactly like the stuff we're looking to buy or even to wholesale, I think that would be a good first step. Or like another example, even on some of the ones that have been like right in the middle of Las Vegas, we've gotten two recently where they basically owe like what the thing is worth, So like I think they had like a tiny bit of equity and on one of them and like even less on the other one. So one of them we listed, and the seller made like 10 grand after like all their proceeds and whatnot, and we made like another 10 grand just because we listed it. And then the other one we're buying like subject to, and we're giving them like a $5,000 that they had in equity, and we're making like another 10,000 ourselves. So those have been the issues as to why I think our ROAS isn't as great. So, properties that are not really in our buy box or properties that don't really have too much equity, that's kind of what's been like hitting our doorstep pretty often. And for those reasons, I think our ROAS is not what I want it to be.
Okay. So how could you fix that problem?
Yeah. So there's always going to be like a lot of fingers you can point at people. Like I could be like, oh, the PPL company sucks. The PPC company sucks. I don't think that's the case. I think we just got to be more intelligent and figure out like how to be more profitable on those. If I had the exact answer to your question, then I'd already be doing it and being more profitable. So I don't have like the exact answer.
But like your ROAS being low is not really a bottleneck or constraint. Like that's a problem. It's kind of like saying like, oh, I'm overweight. Okay, why are you overweight? Well, I'm overweight. It's like, well, are you overweight because you're not eating the right food? Are you not exercising? Do you have a thyroid problem? Like what's the root of it? So with a low ROAS, well, first is going to be like the salesperson. Do you think, have you compared you working those leads to whoever's working them now?
Yeah. I listen to like every single call that we make an offer on, and I genuinely believe, and not even like screw what I believe, but just looking at the data, we're performing like pretty much around the same. And these leads that and let's say I suck, right? And he's like performing, sucky just like me, right? Which I don't think is the case, but let's just assume it was. On the majority of these like inbound leads that we've gotten, you physically could not have really gotten the deal like any lower, because most of them have been like subject twos where we're like giving the seller like $5,000 because they have maybe like 10 or 15 grand in equity, and then we're
Yeah.
assigning it and making, so it'd be a different story if, let's say,
I get what you're saying. So,
yeah.
so you're saying it's not a sales issue.
Yeah, at least
Okay.
I don't believe so. And the KPIs that we have, like leads, like gross leads to net leads, like net leads to appointment set appointment complete, like appointment complete, offer to contract, like all those leads, like those numbers are above like industry standards. So like,
Can you
we're
go
doing
through them
pretty
all
well.
really quick?
Sure. So they're all different depending on like per marketing channel. But do you want like,
For PPL and PPC.
sure. You know what? I could probably just pull them up.
Yeah, let's pull it out. Let's
Cool. So you wanted to know like what our KPIs look like for PPC.
Yes.
So, okay. So we've gotten in the 3.5 months that we've been running PPC, we've gotten 73 people that have clicked on our ad. Out of those 73 people, 51 were actually interested in selling their property. Out of those 51 people, we set appointments for 34 of them. Out of those 34, 27 of them showed up. Out of those 27, we made an offer to 20 of them. Out of those 20 people that we made an offer on, we got 6 of them accepted. And out of those 6 that we went under contract, we've closed on 4. And the 2 that we haven't closed on, one of them was a probate, and the other one, it was a probate slash like a scam, but mainly a scam. And the seller wasn't like who they were actually like saying they were.
Yeah.
So really, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess I still count it as a contract, but it's not like that person really even had the ability to sell the house. So, so those are our numbers.
So the last part I want to transition to is mindset.
Okay.
So I know you don't show up to the office before 9 o'clock, which is crazy. Do you show up to the office before 10 or no?
I really don't show up before 10. Maybe like I'll show up a couple minutes before.
What time do you show up usually?
10 is the time of
10.
Yeah,
Got
but
it.
I don't show up before 10.
Okay, why do you show up to the office at 10? And what time do you leave?
Well, why do I show up at 10? It just kind of works with my schedule. Like I like to go to bed like 2:30, and
Damn, you stay up that late?
yeah, and then I'll wake up at like 9:20 typically. I get up, I get ready, I drive to the office, I'm ready to go. And then when do I leave? I try to be out of here by 5, but I'm normally here till like 6. Then I go to the gym, do my thing, for like an hour and a half. I go home, I eat dinner, hang out with my parents for a little bit. Then I like to ride my bike around the neighborhood for like an hour, listen to some Bad Bunny, do whatever I need to do.
This guy.
Come home, like chill for a bit, FaceTime my girlfriend, whatever. Read the Bible. Haven't missed a day in like 3 months since I started. Shower, do whatever I need to do. And then I'll usually hop on the computer and like put in some work for like 2 hours. And that's just like my personal time, like personal work time. Like, I don't have anyone like hitting me up, distracting me, none of that stuff. And then I usually just watch like a YouTube video or so for like 30 minutes and then I go to bed.
What do you watch?
Whatever, like literally whatever. Like, yesterday I was watching, I was learning a little bit about like Mexican cartels and,
So you're just random.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, like the day before I was watching like Ryan Trahan videos. Like he had like this little like series of like a penny series or something. So like I'll literally just watch whatever I feel like watching that day.
Are you motivated every day to do what you're doing? Do you feel motivated?
I wouldn't say I'm like motivated every single day. Like other days where I wake up, I'm like, I don't feel like making these sales calls today. Sure. But I'd say I'm like always disciplined to do it, So, but do I like wake up every single day? I'm like, let's go. Like, no, definitely not. But I do think I'm motivated like more days than not. So for instance, if I'm like hanging out with certain people, like over the weekend or something, they're like, I don't want to like go to work tomorrow or something. I typically don't feel that way. So, like I typically do like want to go to work and stuff, but is it like an everyday thing? Nah, like I definitely can't say that's every single day that I'm like, like let's go.
I guess in like, lastly, like what would you want to leave the listeners with?
I think it's important that you figure out like if you want to get into real estate and like into business and all this stuff, figure out what is the reason behind wanting to do that, and then build according to that. So for me, and this, I might go on like a little bit of a tangent here.
No,
so
go ahead.
Forgive me. So for me, I think I'm very, very motivated by just like I have like this desire to feel like I kind of reached my potential, whatever that may be. For instance, I know I could just like have my team kind of do its own thing right now, and I would probably make like 50 grand a month if I didn't really work much or anything. But even though like making 50 grand a month without working like might sound nice, I feel like I would kind of get depressed if I'm just kind of like chilling all day, not doing anything. So for me, I feel like really driven to just pour everything I have into something and like see how much I can like build it out to be. But that's not the case for like most people. You know, like most people don't have that like innate feeling. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, because sometimes it, you know, it like stresses me out or whatnot. But the advice I would give to someone is figure out like what it is that you want, and then like build to that. If what you want is maybe, you know, maybe you're at a different stage in your life than I am. Like I'm not married. Sure, I've had a girlfriend for a long time, but I'm not like married. I don't have kids or anything like that. Maybe you do have a wife and a kid, and maybe that's why you want to get into business, because you want to make more money so you can like spend more time with them. I would figure that out, and then I would figure out how to build to that, so you can essentially just kind of like get what it is that you're after. And along with that, I wouldn't let somebody else's goal be your goal as well. So for instance, I don't know who's a famous like billionaire, like Cardone, for example. I couldn't tell you like what all Grant Cardone did to like get to where he's at. Like I have no clue. But if your goal isn't like to be a billionaire necessarily, then I probably wouldn't be copying a lot of like the, you know, the work ethic that Cardone has, because you might be miserable. You might be like, oh man, like I enjoyed my life more when I was working a 9 to 5. So really just figure out what it is that you want your life to be, figure out what your goal is, and just create a business that, you know, that aligns with that, whether that's making 100 grand a year, or even if that's making like 100 grand a day. Just figure out what you want and create a business that's going to, you know, just make you happy.
Beautiful. If people want to reach out to you, where do they go?
To the link in the, no, I'm kidding.
We are going to put your stuff in the link in the description.
Honestly, the best way to reach me
but
is,
if they're on audio.
Yeah, true. The best way to reach me would just be to send me a DM on Instagram, at RayRRodriguez _. I'm pretty good about just answering like any questions that I get on there. If you couldn't tell, I just like shared a bunch of info on here. So if you have any questions, just shoot me a DM and I'll probably send you a voice message or text you back really quick and be like, oh yeah, probably a bad idea to go drop a 50K on a SEO right now or something like that. So don't do that. So yeah, you can reach me on the gram.
All right, beautiful.